Welcome to Chapter 15, Section 15.4, Infusion Time and Volume. An order may call for a certain amount of fluid to infuse at a specific rate without specifying the duration. In this case, you will need to calculate the duration, or amount of time the IV will take to infuse. In other cases, you may know the duration and the flow rate, and you will need to calculate the fluid volume. So for the first row, to calculate infusion time in hours T, so note this is capital T, you need to identify the following: the volume, expressed in milliliters, so important it needs to be in that specific unit. If it's not, you may need to convert it. F, flow rate, expressed in milliliters per hour. Once again, these are the units you need. If they're not in those units, you would need to convert. Any fractional hours expressed in minutes by multiplying by 60. And use this formula to find T, the infusion in time in hours. So let's take a look at the first example. Let's take a look at our information that is given. 1,000 milliliters is ordered to infuse at a rate of 75 milliliters per hour. Well, let's check the units first. We have milliliters and milliliters per hour. Those match the units above. So we don't need to do any converting. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is substitute these values into the formula. So let me go ahead and label what these are. The volume is going to be 1,000 milliliters. And the flow rate, capital F, is going to be 75 milliliters per hour. Plugging this into our formula right there, we know that the total time is going to be the volume divided by the flow rate. When we do this, milliliters will cancel each other out, and we will be left with 1,000 divided by 75. And because this is divided by h, it actually ends up multiplying to the top when you think of fractions. And we'll get the h on the top. Calculating that out, we get 13.33 hours. So the answer to this is, let me pull out the right color here. Let's go back with black, why not? Total time to infuse, alright, now be careful here. This is talking about 13 and hours. Okay? So we know that it's 13. Oh, let me erase that one little piece right there. Boop. So we know the total time is 13 hours. But what's the minutes? Well, let's take this apart on the side real quick over up here. 13.33. 13 is the hours, so the minutes is 0.33. So to find out what this is, we're going to use that expression right there. Or sorry, that step right there. So to figure out what minutes is in terms of hours, we're going to go ahead and multiply 0.33 by 60, which is going to end up equaling 20 minutes. So 13 hours and 20 minutes. So that's how we found the minute part. Remember, take that decimal part, multiply it by 60, and you'll get your total number of minutes. The next rule. To calculate the time when an infusion will be completed, you must first know the time that the infusion started. Okay. You need to know it in military time, and the total time in hours and minutes required to infuse the solution ordered. Since each day is only 24 hours long, when the sum is greater than 2400, midnight, this is a small error here, it says you must. You must start a new day by subtracting 2400. This will determine the time of completion, which will be the next calendar day. So that is if the sum that you find is greater than the total hours in one day. Let's take a look at example number 2. Determine when the following infusion will be completed. We have ordered 1,000 milliliters to be infused at a rate of 75 milliliters per hour, and we start the infusion at 7 a.m. on 6/06/21. So June 6th, 21. Ooh, the future. Okay, so first we need to determine the time in terms of military time. So 7 a.m. What is 7 a.m. in military time? 7 a.m. in military time is 0700. Alright, so once we've figured that out, now we're going to calculate the infusion time using the formula that we have above, or originally. Time is volume divided by the flow rate. Okay, once again, we're going to plop in the values, which we already did the previous problem. It's the same exact problem. So solving like we did above. We get the answer, 13 hours and 20 minutes. Once again, this is from the example above. So now what we need to do is add the total amount of time in hours and minutes, writing the hours followed by the minutes. Since the infusion time is 13 hours and 20 minutes, we know this is going to be, in military time, 13:20 in military time. So, to figure out how much time has passed, we're going to go ahead and add the time it started to how much time has elapsed. So let me write that calculation down. So the time that started right here, ooh, that was bigger than it was supposed to be. Time started and the time elapsed, so that's going to be 0700 plus 1320, 02, 10, 2020. Aha, the year we are in. So 2020. And this, let's see, what is this in terms of standard time? For standard time, you'll take the 2020, subtract 12 from it, and you'll end up with the 820. So the infusion time is going to be completed at 2020. Let me write that out in blue. The infusion time will be completed at 2020, which is 8:20 p.m. Okay, let's look at the next example. I think it's the last example for this section. So the next rule. To calculate infusion volume, you're going to use the formula volume equals the time times the flow rate, or dimensional analysis, to find the infusion volume V in milliliters. Where T, once again, is the time expressed within hours. As usual, you need to have these specific units, hours. Oops, wrong pen. If it was given in minutes, you would need to convert, and the flow rate must be expressed in milliliters per hour. Once again, if it is given in different units, you would need to convert it. So for example 3, find the total volume infused in 5 hours if the infusion rate is 35 milliliters per hour. We're told to use the formula method, which is that one right there. So what do we need to figure out this formula method? Well, we need the time and the flow rate. So it's totally infused in 5 hours, so time is going to equal 5 hours. Is the unit correct? Yes, it's hours, we're good. And the flow rate is 35 milliliters per hour. Are these units correct? Yes, milliliters per hour, that is correct. Okay, so we found the needed information. We can go ahead and plop those into our formula. V equals T times F. So V is going to equal, the time was 5 hours, times the flow rate, which is 35 milliliters, not miles, in 1 hour. Let's put the 5 hours over 1. When When we do that, we can go ahead and cancel out the hours. And we are left with T equals 5 times 35 milliliters. Oops, let's pull that back. Which is going to end up equaling 175 milliliters. And what is this? This is the... Oh, goodness, that all of a sudden turned into a T when I was solving. No idea why that did that. These should not be T. They're still supposed to be a V. So the volume is 175 milliliters. So we can write the volume that will be infused is 175 milliliters. Okay, actually this is the last example. Find the total volume infused in 12 hours if the infusion rate is 200 milliliters per hour. And we're told to solve using dimensional analysis, so not the formula which we used above. Okay, so first thing we want to make sure is that the units are all correct. So is the time unit in hours? Yes, it is. And is the flow rate unit in milliliters per hour? Yes, it is. So we have no need to convert any of them. So now what we're going to do is calculate. So we're going to place our unknown on the left-hand side. We don't know how many milliliters that is. We're going to go ahead and multiply by the first factor, which is going to be the length of time over 1. Then we'll multiply this by the conversion factor, which is going to be the 200 milliliters in 1 hour. Multiplying this out, we can go ahead and cancel the H values, or the H units, excuse me. Multiplying this out, V milliliters is going to equal 12 times 200 milliliters. And multiplying that out, V milliliters is going to equal 2,400 milliliters. Okay, so what we know is that 2,400 milliliters is the amount to be infused in 12 hours. And if you want to be more specific, you could say at a flow rate of 200 milliliters per hour. You wouldn't need to actually tack this extra part on. And, oops. And there we go. That is it for 15.4.